Perfect.
I'm talking too much, you signal me off.
All right. So I'd like to start with your name, your birth date, the branch of service that you were in, and then your job, basically. Wait.
Okay. My name is Jack B. McEwan. I was born on January the 8th, 1920. I served in the United States Army Air Corps, flying B-17s in the South Pacific, and later, after my combat flying, I was stationed in Nebraska, Kearney, Nebraska, where we were staging B-17s to England and later B-29s to the Pacific. I was in the safest place in the United States, so to speak, when I got that assignment. No combat there.
Great. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Los Angeles here, and went to LA High School, and after that I went to USC in a pre-dent course before I had to go to they had just before I was to leave on a mission in our Mormon church in July. They had the first draft, military draft, and my number was 16. The draft board later told me that he thought it was wonderful that we go on missions in our church. He says, just give me a letter that you're going, and I'll give you ministerial deferment. A week later, I got a letter from the headquarters, from the head man of the Mormon church, saying that inasmuch as I had not left for my mission, I was waiting to go in the first week of August, that there would be the policy of the Mormon church that they would honor the draft call of the United States government. And I was very discouraged on that because my buddies had left and I was going to be going. So rather than being a draftee, realizing that we were for sure going to get into the war, that time we hadn't had Pearl Harbor, that I joined the full military for the Air Force, Army Air Force. And that was the beginning of my military career. And that ended in the last around mid-September of 1945.
And you chose to enter the Air Corps.
Right.
You chose to enter
I chose to. I didn't want to. If I went in the draft, it was infantry.
Mm-hmm.
And I made model airplanes as a hobby, so I was interested in flight. So I signed up for the Army Air Corps, and that's where I went.
And where did you, where was your basic training?
Well, it was in St. Louis, where I signed up and said I wanted to go to the Army Air Corps. I took the exam, passed, and I was then sent to I was sent to California from there. And I was lucky because that's nice to be in California. Oh gosh, see your ghost. I'll say it in here.
Yeah, we can, if you want to look it up in here.
Anyway, it was flight training. I sold it after 8 hours of flying. That was in the,
How old were you when you?
I was 21.
Okay.
Rank in the Air Force. It was in Tulare, California. And we flew the Stearman, the twin wing airplane. We all loved it. It flew so good that you could take your hands off the control and the plane would come right back up to normal, flying straight and level for you. So we dearly loved that plane. I was then sent to Merced, California for intermediate training. And we flew the B-20, see, what do we call that plane? That was a noisy thing. It was a BT-13. It had fixed landing gear. It didn't have retractable. It had just two positions to set the RPMs. And those planes would make a lot of noise until we got it in cruise situation. We loved that plane. And then I went to Phoenix, where we went to Luke Field for advanced training. We flew the plane that's used often in the movies for a Zero. This is the that's got the name. You know how we North American AT-6s. Gosh, how could I forget that? But anyway, that was the one we got our wings on. And right then and there, they told us as we got graduated, they had need for 100 pilots for foreign duty, immediate foreign duty. And we were a bunch of heroes. We thought we were go get the Japs. Because we'd had Pearl Harbor then. And so I got to Hawaii thinking I was going to be a single-engine pilot flying a P-40, and they said, you're going to be a bomber co-pilot, B-17. And what happened there was when a B-17 would land in Hawaii, they would always send a staff car out to pick up the pilot because he was a grade officer, major or above. Well, when the war came out, they had to expand. These become staff important officers. Their co-pilots became first pilots, and they grabbed us and said, you're now co-pilots to these men that had been co-pilots. Tragically, I only had about 10 hours in the B-17, B-18. That was a two-engine bomber, pot-bellied bomber. And only 2 hours and 14 minutes in a B-17, and that was just flying straight and level. It wasn't landing or taking off or flying formation. We were just flying it. And one evening, in our staff meeting, they said, okay, the following men are to go into immediate combat duty in the South Pacific. And my name and my buddies that were in the same boat were named. There was 4 of us that we were to go into combat. Oh, heck, I didn't even know the procedure in the cockpit. And I was scared to death. I remember worrying about it. We went to church that night in Honolulu, and I was kind of upset about the fact that I'm being sent to combat, and I don't even know how you control what the co-pilot does. And a chaplain came into the restroom where I was, and I saw the star, kind of the cross on his collar. And so I told him, I said, I'm just sick here. I said, they're sending me to combat, and I'm not prepared. And he assured me that if I would try to do the best I could and be the best I could, that I'd make it. God would take care of me. He did. So I went on 58 missions and came back safe.
58
And
missions.
went and joined the 11th Bomb Group, which is on the islands of Espiritu Santos in the Hebrides, and that's down in the South Pacific. I flew as a co-pilot with them. We had to take our plane back to Hawaii in January of 1943 because if the tail would oscillate a little bit in normal flight, the damage to it. So we took it back there for repair. When I saw years later at a reunion for the 11th Bomb Group, I read the records that they got from the government about the history of that group, that they lost 3 planes during the month I was in Honolulu waiting for a plane to be fixed. And I like to think I could possibly have been one of those 3 that didn't get home.
Mm-hmm.
B-17 could take a lot of punishment. It was much better than the B-24, which is also 4-engine bomber that replaced us because it could carry a greater load than we could carry in bombs and had a greater range than the B-17 had. B-17s were then all stuck to England or in Italy. But anyway, when I was there, they got orders to relieve the 11th Bomb Group and bring in the 5th Bomb Group.
Mm-hmm.
And so I became a co-pilot there for a short time, and then I became a pilot, first pilot. We had in our squadron what the heck was his name? He wrote the Gene Roddenberry was the guy that wrote the famous movies. He was kind of a brain, although not very popular with the pilots. He taking off one day early in the morning for a mission, and when he got going, well, I guess he didn't have enough to get in the air, so he started hitting the brakes, and then he went off into the stumps of trees of the jungle. That they have a pathway cut through the jungle so that you'd take up like that. And the pilot, or rather the bombardier and the navigator up in the nose, they didn't get out. The rest of them jumped out, and I was lying there in bed, and I could hear the popping of the machine guns. And we all bailed out and ran over to where the runway was and saw the plane on fire. But Gene Roddenberry became a policeman. I was going through Los Angeles and 8th and Broadway, and he was directing traffic. And I yelled at him, Gene, and he blew his whistle to pull me over at the curb. And we sat in the car. Everybody thought I was being arrested. We were just shooting the breeze about what happened. But then I wish I could remember the program that he became a famous guy for, the movies. But
Was it Star Trek, was it?
Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I flew until we came to August of '43. And we were relieved with B-24s coming in and taking our place. They said, you fellows have 2 choices. We can fly you home, or you can take a boat home. 100% of us says we want to go by boat because we were absolutely sure that we were just going to go home for maybe a month and then they're going to send us back in combat again. And we'd had it by that time. So we flew home, and it was quite a thrill to come in San Francisco at 2 o'clock in the morning, go underneath the bridge, the sodium lights and the fog above us. And we had infantry, too, as long as with Navy and Army pilots that all got on the deck. Mm-hmm. And they're all hooting and hollering, they can't get us now, they can't get us now, because for a day we went back into where the ship will turn and go in a different direction so that it couldn't get a submarine, Jap subs shooting with torpedo if they were there. But it was a real thrill, and then from then we were reassigned to various assignments, and I was assigned to the safest place in the United States, Kearney, Nebraska. In the map, it's where the Platte River goes right down like that. And I was base operations officer, and we were staging B-17s to the Pacific, rather to the Pacific and to England mostly. And then the B-29s definitely to the Pacific. That was my military experience.
Can you rewind a bit, and talk about when you first soloed, the first time you flew by yourself?
Oh, that was a thrill. I think that's got to be the biggest thrill any man could have, is to solo a plane. I mean, when we were junior class, we had Texans as our senior class. And when we came on board, we got into the air base there one evening about 10 o'clock at night, getting off the train. And these Texans, welcome, boys. Come on in here. We sure glad to have you. Come on in here. So as we crossed the line and got into the base, immediately all hell broke loose. All right, you dodos, hit a brace. That means you go to a position of attention with your chin down into your chest, your shoulders way back, and he says, I want to see those. They put their finger in your back. Pinch my fingers, mister. Come on, mister. I said hit a brace. And if they caught you looking sideways like that, they scream at you. You go by this place, mister, hit a point, pick a point, don't you dare look around. And I tell you, we thought all hell had come loose. We thought, gee, they're worse than the Japanese. Anyway, they would make us in the mess hall do such things as they had two seniors at one end and the other end of the table, and then there would be 3 dodos here and 3 dodos or underclassmen at the table, and we would always have to pass the food to the 2 men. Mister, would you like the potatoes, or would you like some more meat, or things like that, before you ever took any. And if you didn't have your feet right flat on the floor, or if you weren't sitting, and they made you sit only on the last 2 inches of the seat, and you had to eat a square meal. That meant you put the knife in or the fork into the food, lift it up to this point, then bring it directly in here. Everybody had to eat a square meal. If you did anything wrong, they say, mister, hit a brace, pop off. But then stand on your chair, scream at the top of your lungs, I'm a bad dodo. And all the other senior members in the big mess hall, oh, no, what did you do, mister? I didn't have my feet flat on the floor. Oh, mister, hit a brace. And they'd scream at, well, no one wanted to eat. I mean, we're just sick. We're so glad to get out of that mess hall because they just chew the daylights out of you. So they graduated up to the next step, and we became senior members. What is the first thing we said to the group as they come on the train into our bed? Come on in, fellas. We're so glad to have you. Anybody here from Texas? Oh, boy, if he raised his hand, did he catch hell? And we did the same thing to them. So
Sure.
we've always said we fought the Japs and we fought the Texans. But that was good discipline because you learned to hit a brace. And we had to wear our binoculars around our neck, and we had to be on the double every place we walked on that air base. If we're going around to the various rooms or to the line where the ships were, airplanes were, you had to run, and you didn't make a curve. You stand into a stop. You'd then turn around and face the other way. And then you go, but you had your arms out like this, like you had wings. I tell you, you just didn't own your own life. But it taught us discipline. Because when we were told to jump, we knew to jump right now. And it was good in the military. You got immediate reaction when you got an order.
Mm-hmm.
So while we laughed about it, and we just did the same thing as the Texans did to us. When we finally got into the combat, though, it was the United States Navy that we fought. We were assigned reconnaissance to them. That we didn't know where the Japs were, their ships were, so we would go out on vectors from the New Hebrides up to the Solomons, and there's about 300 miles between the two. We'd go up and we would be assigned a certain vector. You'd fly out 800 miles, make a dog leg of 100 miles, and you'd come on back, and each B-17 would be assigned a vector, trying to find out where the Japs were. And if we ever found a task force coming down and they had an aircraft carrier, you wouldn't be getting back. They'd send up so many zeros that they'd bound to get you and knock you off. But luckily, in one big battle, we had one cruiser and 3 destroyers. We couldn't go on the bombing missions because our navigator was dead and sick. So they sent us on a reconnaissance to look after the big battle. And this was in November 15th, 1953. The big Jap force came down and they had a big battle with our things at Guadalcanal. And we were flying along north of them, and we saw this big black oil slick going off in a direction like that. That was a ship that had been hit and they were losing their oil. So we turned and followed that vector to see if we find the ship. And that's when we came up on the cruiser, 2 destroyers. They shot at us, but they didn't hit us. But we sent them a message back, an encoded message. Co-pilot does the coding of that, and I was co-pilot then. Then when we were on the dog leg, we came across a camouflage destroyer. And we were just underneath the clouds, about 2,000 feet above the water, when we came across him. And the temptation was that, boy, we should have strafed him, but again, that was not our mission. Our mission was reconnaissance, information. What do you see? Where are they? So that was when I got shot at, as well as when we make bombing raids in Guadalcanal. You had a series of islands coming up here, which are the Solomon Islands. The second island, big island here, Volcano Island, was Guadalcanal. And up here was a big island called Bougainville. And Kahili was the big Jap air base. Well, that was our main target that we would bomb. Mm-hmm. We'd often go at night and to try to harass them, keep them awake at night. We'd have our orders were to stay over the target for 2 hours. If we got there at 12, you'd make a pass one way this way, you'd make another pass this way, but you're different, changing your altitude. Mm-hmm. We had 100-pound bombs, and we also had a bunch of beer bottles. And sometimes you would fly over, and there wasn't one coming down. It was the balls. And, we had Tregaskis, who was a great World War II author. He was on our board our plane. We told him we had a secret weapon. He'd be able to help attack them. So he was helping throw the bottles out of the side windows. And one time we were coming back and just about out of the bombs. And out comes a searchlight. And I said, I turned to the pilot. I said, hey, I'm going to go back and look at that bomb go. I've never seen bombs go. Mm-hmm. We've seen after we turned away, there were the smoke and that, but I wanted to see where they're going. So I peeked out over the back. It was about a distance from that wall to this wall here. You had a big turret here where the guns appeared. I had to go through that, peek down into the big bomb bay. And it lit up inside because he had us in this light. But all of a sudden, our bombardier cut loose with 5 bombs. Click, 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 click. Now, because I was debating whether I should have gone back in the cockpit, but I wanted to see the bombs hit. So I stayed and watched there, and then I saw them exploding like that, and they went right over the searchlight, and the searchlight went out. We made 2 more passes. They didn't turn lights on it then. But that's what we said. We had a secret weapon. It's all written up in the book I have on the 5th Bomb Group, how we flew the secret weapons. But I had one mission that this was the flying the big bomb busters. These were 2,000-pound bombs. You could only put 2 of those in a B-17. Big circumference of these planes. And we were to go up with 6 planes, and basically not a good formation, but we were in the same direction going up. Only 2 of us made it. We had tremendous storm thunderheads. The thunderheads of the South Pacific are what's called the equatorial front. It goes up and down and back, and boy, that's the treacherous because you get tremendous up and down wind shafts in there. 200 miles an hour wind going up, and you could, if you went in wrong, fast and not slowing down, you could snap off your tail elevators, or possibly break a wing. So when you get caught in that, you slow down, you move everything down and try to get through it, and the turbulence was terrible. Well, when we got up there, we thought, oh, good, we're out of the thunderheads, our target is wide open. So we go over to the, let's see, where's the pictures of it? Whether I had it right here. Anyway, the base is right at the foot of the large island. We eventually took that island, the Marines did. But you go to what you call the IP, which is the initial point. That's the point that you're going from that point on. You turn it over to the bombardier. He's flying the plane then. Normally you'd have a autopilot that the Norden bomb sight would control, and that would put the plane on target. Ours was like the rest of the planes, was lousy, didn't have much repair, but we could do it by watching a needle on the control panel there, that if it were at 12 o'clock, we're right on line for the target. If it's over this side, that means you got to turn the plane here, get that needle back up to 12 o'clock again. So just as we got the IP and started going, on comes searchlights. Now the Japs have radar, because they just come around like this. And you don't feel more nude in your life than when you're caught in the lights. And they started shooting at us. You'd see the blinking, and boom, 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 the cat come around. We had a navigator, not a navigator, he was the top pilot, top engineer in the top turret directly behind us. And in a normal conversation with his throat mic, sounded like he was being strangled. He was hard to understand. Well, here we are going into the target. Bob's bursting around us here, and he comes on screaming, and all we could get from it, zeros, which is the Japanese fighter plane. And we said, drop that damn bomb, get rid of that bomb. Well, this is our bombardier's moment of glory. He's never dropped a 2,000-pound bomb in his life. This is the time he's got two of them, and he's got a very big target. He's going to hit, he told us in advance, we're going to hit one on the runway, on the field, and the others where they were the bivouac area, where their quarters were. And you could tell when he let the bomb go, because the plane goes up like this a little bit. And from then on, we kept hitting our thighs like that, both of us. Damn it, get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. You wasn't that far away from it, but it seemed like it was miles ahead. And finally, off goes the bomb. The light, the little green light goes on that, yes, the bomb's away. Well, I was flying with Captain Ivy. He did what we call a rollover, like this, and then a split S. And we must have gone down 6,000 feet. We're going in at 9. And then you're trying to pull yourself out to level. You talk about the drain on that plane. It kept pulling. And as we pulled up like that, all of a sudden, 2 tachometers of the outboard and inboard on the right side engines, all of a sudden we saw the needles going. And we thought we'd lost 2 engines. And then I looked up on the controls here, and 2 of the controls that controls the RPM, you put it in a position, then they're locked in a certain, you lock them in. They slipped out of the locks, and they'd fallen back to 0. Well, as soon as I push them back, here goes everybody in the plane. Oh, thank goodness, because we thought we had it. And then as we were leaving, here comes Captain Turner. The only other plane was able to get through the weather, or didn't have to go back because of mechanical problems. He was going in low, or about 1,800 feet, so that the automatic weapons were firing like you'd see. They were just like a cone. As he was going along, they were going to knock him out of the sky. Well, it was easily seen from the pilot, but where I was sitting, I couldn't see. So I undid my safety belt, and I got up like this to look out that window to see, and I popped my back parachute. I had the kind of parachute that was on your back at that time. Here I had the handle. Well, the parachute, you have a pilot parachute, which is about circumference of about like that, but you have expanding like that. It expands out so that it'll pull out the rest of the chute.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that pushed me right up against the controls. And here I am trying my best to keep from being up. It was right here. Keep my hands from having my head, keep my body from going up and pushing the nose of the plane down. And I called the navigator to come out of the, not the navigator, the engineer to come on out of the turret, put this thing behind my back, down under the chair I was in. Anyway, you'd think that would have been enough for you, then got home. On the way before we got there, we got to the Russell Islands, which were an atoll just before you get to Guadalcanal. It was about 70 miles from Guadalcanal. There's just 3 little islands, just nothing but palm trees. We had instructions of when we approach a friendly island, you always flew in a certain direction at a certain altitude. Well, we had our running lights on as well as complying so that the radar would know that this is a friendly plane coming. Mm-hmm. We had a thing, an IFF, which in case of identifying friend or foe. So they should know that we were afraid of the plane. Well, when we looked down, there's overcast over the Russell Islands. But it's like when you see lightning, when you're above lightning. They all kind of light up, but it's a different thing. You don't see it going down, but you just see the light, like they're gliding, well, like photograph flashings. And all of a sudden, directly in front of us, 100 yards ahead, doom, 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 they were shooting at us. Those SOBs were shooting. So we proceed to tell them what their genealogy is. Anyway, one thing is we did another way, but because we knew these guys were good about hitting the target. The Japs got so bad, trying to hit Guadalcanal, don't get back. When they'd come down, instead of getting Guadalcanal, they'd drop them on the military down in these islands and turn around and go home safe. So they were gun happy down there. Anyway, we landed at 3 o'clock. First thing we get when we land there is the flight surgeon. Right as we taxi and park the plane in a little Corvette. He brings whiskey to all the crew. Now, I was the most popular crew member of that flight because I don't drink. Mm-hmm. And I'd say, who wants my drinker? And they go, oh, Jack, yeah. They call me Mac. Oh, Mac, you're my friend. So I got to be very popular with the crew because I could give them a jigger of whiskey. Mm-hmm. But finally we got the orders, like I said, we can go home now. And, from then on, it was just nice flying in the United States the rest of the war.
Now, were you in the same plane the entire time throughout all your combat missions?
No, you would sometimes fly the one that was flyable.
Yeah.
Basically, we flew like the Poison Ivy. That was the one I said that we were in. This is the Japanese air base I was looking for. Great big runway here. You can see all these bombs coming up. This was bombs here in the daytime. But there's some other islands we hit there too. Guadalcanal and Munda. We bombed down Munda. We're told by the head island there were Brits from Australia, and they were. See, here's your code of your islands going up to here's the Jap islands. They were also in these.
Mm-hmm.
We were here, but they would able to pick up the flights coming down to warn us. They would be stationed on these things here, being with the natives. Natives were not Japanese oriented. They didn't like them. They liked the white men. We were very fortunate there. A lot of fellows didn't come home, but most of us did. That's what the Psalm was like, but that front would move up and down over it like that, depending upon how the weather was. And you look at these math things they show us on the TV today where the fronts are. You can see how they come down from San Francisco and then they go back up to the east. Anyway.
You mentioned you had spent a little time on Guadalcanal.
Oh, yes. What we did at first, down here, 300 miles of the New Hebrides. Mm-hmm. We took over those. And at first, after the invasion, they couldn't get enough gas. They needed to save the gas for the fighters they had to hit the Japanese who were hitting them. They would sit out here alongside the island and just shoot big naval shells into the runways and things of that nature. And sometimes they'd hit a plane or incapacitate a plane from shrapnel. But then finally we got to where we'd come up. So our squadron, our group is 4 squadrons. And we would rotate a squadron up here because that's as much as they could handle. Mm-hmm. And that's usually 9 planes. But you could have come, if we'd have come across a Jap task force, and if they had had an aircraft carrier, we'd have told them about it, but we wouldn't be getting home because they'd be jumped with 20 or more Jap fighters. Mm-hmm. They could pass us. They're bound to get you one time, mechanically or kill you. We had several guys. Had one guy here is a famous football player, Colton, that the guy made a pass right on my head on, and the one bullet right in the windshield. I flew in that plane, and that hole's right there in front of you. It hit him right in the nose. Killed him outright, and there's a beautiful picture of his grave in here. But he was a famous football player. I think when you want it, it doesn't show up.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was just a lucky shot. But they made a very nice grave for him. They had like a machine guns, bullets. Go from the 50 caliber to 30 caliber, and then 50 caliber to here. So that went all the way around the grave, plus the flag in front of his grave. I'm not sure I had a picture of that.
Now, did you always fly with the same crew?
Oh, yes. Once in a while you may get a reassignment, but usually it's the same crew, same gang.
So you guys became pretty
We became
close.
very good buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we got in San Francisco, they took us onto the military island there to give us our medals. Mm-hmm. We all put our arms around each other, changing our addresses, and be sure to write me and all that. sad to say we didn't keep together after that.
Yeah.
I feel bad because I've gone to my squadron reunions, and some guys said, "Oh, we keep together all the time, communicate," and they've had reunions, just the crew. But our crew, the guy that was the one I flew first with, and then I took over as first pilot, Bill Ivey, he became a full colonel in the regular Air Force after the war until he retired. But I wish I could have shown you that grave because it was choice. It's the prettiest grave in the whole cemetery. Well, I can't find it now. Sorry.
That's all right. We can maybe come
Anyway.
across it later. But now you said when you guys were throwing beer bottles out of the plane, I'm assuming they were empty.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What was it? What was
They
the?
wouldn't give up. It's what they gave up. We had them in boxes, card boxes, and they would dump the boxes on, throwing things out like that.
Just as
And
an
so
annoyance.
the thing is that they thought that we were doing what they would do to us. They would drop time bombs. In other words, you could hear, like the first night on the first mission in Guadalcanal, they had Charlie. We call him Chinese Charlie. I know Japanese Charlie. They'd come in, and they would change the pitch. They were two engines, bombers, but they would change the RPM so they go ow, 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 make it difficult to locate where they are up there. And this is before we got really established in the island. And you could hear, it's not a whistle. If you watch the movies, where they, that is the way they come down, and a boom, 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 no explosion. So that made us all nervous because wherever they hit, everybody thought they were timed. They were set to explode an hour later or something like that when people had dropped the guard. We had one time, I remember, we were watching a movie out there by the beach, and we got the condition red, enemy target coming. So we ran down to the beach because there they had a pit that you could dive into that had big logs on top of it there, and then we were sitting out there. And we had gotten some dry food boxes you can get, K rations, and so we were sitting out there this beautiful night, eating and waiting for the Japs to come. And all of a sudden over at Tulagi, now Guadalcanal's here, Tulagi's over here. They're the smaller islands, but this is where the invasion first took place, where they hit Guadalcanal. And they said, well, they're catching it. And then all of a sudden, here it comes, and our searchlights got right on. You can see this, they call it a Betty, twin-engine jet bomber. You could see him coming this way towards us like this. So, hey, he's right overhead. And all of a sudden we begin to hear this. Well, four of us dove for the entrance at the same time. And we wedged. And then it was boom, 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 just beyond us. And then we started to giggle and laugh because we had to undo ourselves because we had all hit that thing at the same time.
Like a cartoon.
We literally plugged ourselves, wedged it in there. So we got out and looked up, and he's still there. But then now the night fighters are formed because all of a sudden we see red tracers going towards him and red tracers from them going back. And so everybody in the island says, "Get that son of a bitch, get that. Well, get him. And all of a sudden he starts to flame on one wing. And hooray, hooray, hooray. And he got around here and he's making turned back to go towards his base, and all of a sudden he just blew up. And it comes Taylor, I tell you, if you were at the Rose Bowl and a guy on kickoff ran the full length for a touchdown, you couldn't have heard more screaming than happening. See that? This one thing I had is a scrap of a B-17, of a jet bomber that crashed here. And where I had it. Anyway, it's
Was that the one?
little piece. I cut that off the tail. I wanted to have a piece of the Jap fighter. I talk and I don't do good here.
That's all right.
Anyway, that was what I got for the Japanese bomber.
Now, when you were on Guadalcanal, did you you came across any Marines or anybody that was
Came across what?
any of the Marines that were there at the time?
Oh yeah, they'd come up to us when we'd land, and they would pick up food and mirrors from the dead Japs, and Japanese money. That was a lot of people wanted coffees, things like that, or they'd have rifles, they'd have swords, they'd have a flag. That's what I got one time, a Japanese flag, and before they leave Japan, all the relatives would write letters in Chinese. I had a Chinese interpreter tell me what they said, but it's more or less, God bless you and all this and that. And they wore it up on the helmet. But one day we landed there, and I had picked up 2 bottles of French wine. 40, I had to buy them down in the New Hebrides was a co-dominion. It was owned by the British and by the French. And we had to go on a command meeting one time down to the Falls Island, which is the capital. And while I was there, I bought these 2 bottles of French wine, 40 cents apiece. And so when these guys come up to me, you got they think, do you want to trade? I just said, so what do you trade for these? Boy, did they all wanted. And this one guy says, I've got a machine gun. Let me get it for you. I said, I'll wait for you. And it's a bipod machine gun. And I think I've got a picture of me holding it. Well, where the heck? Anyway, it's a bipod where you have a magazine that goes up like this. And the Brits had one just like it, and the Japanese copied it. But I got that home.
Yeah.
When we came back and for relief from combat to Fiji Islands, I went to the censor guy. I said, I'd like to send this home. He said, oh, I don't think you can do that. I know right now the guys that flying the freight back and forth they won't take it. I said, well, if they say okay, will you say okay? Yeah, but they won't do that. So I had taken it apart and gotten some wood and actually made a box that long, this deep. I went and took it down to the troop command that does fair flights, military flights back to the States. And I said, I'd like to send this home. Oh, now see, we're all combat fellows. These are safety guys. They just stay in the safe places. So they respect us. And I said, I have okay from the censor. Oh, gee, I don't know. Are you sure? Yeah. Okay. They sent it home. A week later, it was in my home. My dad couldn't assemble it right. I had to assemble it right. we got that doggone gun back, and I had it here until the war was over, and then they were really worried because too many GIs had machine guns.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it became illegal. So I called the FBI. They came out the house and picked up the gun, and they welded it so the action wouldn't fire.
Mm.
It looked the same, but it was inside. And I had that. My kids used to play war with it in the neighborhoods, and given it to my grandson, who was, every time he come over to see us, he always liked to play with that machine gun. So I gave it to him. Said, "You can have it."
Wow.
He still has it. Now, how that ever got to be us, why something you'd be interested in. This particular, let me tell you about this.
Yeah.
There's, the Japs were sick because the Navy would hit the Bougainville during the day. We would hit them at night. And then they started this new island. There's a small island called Bellali. And it was a small island. But they were making an air base there for fighters that would be between us and their target, our target for the Japanese Kahili. Mm-hmm. And our mission was to go in just at sundown, dusk time, just after the sun's gone down, to hit the target. 9 B-17s and 3 and 3s. That's our formation. 3 here, 3 here, 3 here. I'll show you the island. It should be right here. There's that stuff I was looking for.
Yeah.
What a canal. It's right here. It's a small island. It says the length of the runway practically. Anyway, we came in, and as we made a turn, if this were Bougainville Island here, and this little island, Keeley, was here. When we turned to come back towards this island, below us was a destroyer trying to feed its way through the coral reefs, trying to get out. Mm-hmm. That was a tempting target.
Enemy destroyer.
9 of us, one of us is going to really clobber this guy if we drop the bombs on. But the orders were, get the island. Mm-hmm. So we left the tempting target. And we come up with the lead engineer, lead bombardier is the one that gives the signal when we go. We carpet bomb so that all those 3 coming down over the island there, we started in train. Here comes the bombs out. Mm-hmm. And no anti-aircraft fire. We could tell that the Japs were coming because dust was coming up off the runway down here. Mm-hmm. But we were going into the dusk of night. You know, it's easy to see if you're down this side of us. But they had to come up this way, and they couldn't find us. But I remember when we got 70 miles down for them, I looked back, and you could see black smoke coming up out of it. It was just twilight. But you could see the black, so we know we got congratulated a letter from the commanding general for what a tremendously executed target and the work that we did. We just literally bombed the heck out of that island. I'd like to show you the size of it. It isn't that big. Here he is. That's Bellali. Mm-hmm. You see, that's the runway.
Yeah.
We were coming through like this, and we just started dropping the bombs right along here, right along. It's caught. They had fighters here, so they're the ones that the oil got from fire. Anyway, this is the letter I found later. that this guy here's mother and another lady had actually gone. This is after the war when they could get on. They actually wanted to get on the island because it was where their son was killed. And what happened was when we invaded Munda, which was one of the islands south of us, and we're now getting ready to bomb in Kahili and have an invasion. They lined up 600 of the Japanese, of the British, we called them the 600. They were up at Singapore. They were artillery, over naval artillery, land or out to sea artillery. They took 600 of those down to build these runways, and these guys were weak and hard. If they couldn't contribute to their work, they were immediately shot. And then when we invaded into Munda, and then and knowing that they were going to be attacked in an invasion in Guadalcanal, they lined them up and shot every one of them. And when the people came in and they searching for evidences of killings, they found only graves that these guys were killed. Well, I read that, and I was sick at heart. I said, well, gee, I heard we were bragging and getting this commendation from the general that we wiped off the island. Didn't he know there were 600 Brits down there used to do the dirty work? And I said, oh, gee, that sure is a letdown. But then I got this thing in the letter, in the mail, which told the time of the attack. The attack was 3 months before this particular mission we had, when we called it. So we didn't hit the Brits after all.
Yeah.
So you talk about feeling good after that. It came back, but for a long time, that was something you weren't very proud about.
Sure.
We didn't know they were there on the previous attacks that we made on the island. But this was a scored attack there where they wanted us, because they had these planes on the island now, which could take off and intercept us before they would get to the target. This poor guy, he didn't get it. He didn't get to come home. The rest of us did. So here's this is a picture of the Japanese pilots on the island of Balali. I got that as in a magazine that had a picture of them. But that tells all about it. Here's where the island is here. The base is over here where when we were coming in, they would be able to jump up and get us first. I'm talking too much.
No, not at all. Now, for your missions, how long were the missions on average? I'm sure they varied.
Well, we did a lot of long-range reconnaissance. And we'd be out sometimes as long as 12 hours. When you landed, you were pooped.
Yeah.
A long, long flight, and particularly going that distance, you're going to go into weather.
Yeah.
Because you're going to hit that front. That front just kept moving and up and down. And you just... it was boring at times, but you had to be able to look out to see what you could find. Yeah. One time we went out there, and here's a PBY, a naval PBY.
What's that?
That's the amphibian plane, 2 engines up on top, and they would go out and rescue 5 guys. We had some friends that I know that were in our squadron, but they're later on when they had B-24s and they couldn't do a water landing. They were told to bail out at one time, one after the other. Well, they only found about 5 or 6 of the 10 crew. The others, the pilots too, they never found their bodies. But you picked up by a PVY looking for them, landed and picked them up. It's awfully hard to see people that are in a life raft.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, you do. When Rockefeller had been in the plane that we were trying to find him, all I could find was a gasoline tank or oxygen tank, an orange oxygen tank floating.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only evidence of the plane that we were going out. It was a B-17. It just didn't come back. We went out to find it. But any other questions?
How many crew members were on your
10.
10?
If you had the full crew, there was 10. There was up in those was the bombardier and the navigator. And then you crawl and up in the seat here was the hole where they'll come on up. That's this is where we have the co-pilot and the pilot sit. Behind here is the turret. And he's up, his head's up out above the fuselage. He's the one that works twin 50s here. And you go further back is the radio compartment. There's a roof there that you can undo and open, and the machine gun goes back towards the top of the tail. That's his gun. Then you have back here a ball turret underneath. And that's where that poor guy could, he had to be small. And then you had a waist gun here, a waist gun here. And then at the very back is tail end Charlie. We used to call him tail end Charlie. He had 2 machine guns back there that were synced together. And at first they would tack from the rear, but they didn't like it. But they found out, particularly in England, frontal,
Head on.
they peel off. And what we would try to do is to throw them off. If they'll come up here, and they're getting ready. You know they're getting ready, so you watch them. And when he raises his wing up to start making a pass at you like that, that's the same time that you turn up like this to him. So what you do, you throw him off.
Mm-hmm.
He still shoots at you, but I mean, he sees all of a sudden you're turning into him.
Mm-hmm.
That was the defense. That's if you were jumped alone, which could easily happen. But we were fortunate. Good Lord let me come home and have the blessings of fighting the rest of the war in Nebraska.
Yeah. And when you go on your missions, how many other planes were there with you? Was it you mentioned
planes?
Yeah. How many other?
Well, you had the P-40s, which were and then our sweethearts were the Lockheed twin-engine fighters. Those were our beauties at the last, because the P-40s didn't have the range that these folks had, so these guys could go and fall. And it's beautiful to look up. He had a windows here, you can look up, and you see them coming overhead and just S-ing back and forth. And they had charge engines such that they could go up to high altitude very quickly. And they'd get the Japs almost every time. They'd come down and make passes. In fact, there was a guy that was a master killer of Japs. I forget how many planes he shot down, but he was in a P, what they call it? It was the Lockheed Electra. Beautiful plane. Some of my classmates that didn't volunteer for forward duty were in my graduating class were flying those, and I met them in Guadalcanal.
Oh, yeah.
Went over to see the guys. Hey, hey, glad to see each other. We loved them because that was a beautiful plane.
Mm-hmm.
That really got the Japs.
And how frequently would you go on missions? After one, would you have a week off or some time off?
You could possibly go be assigned every other. It depended upon the conditions at the time. When we hadn't really fully established Guadalcanal, and the Japanese were coming down, this is in the latter part of 42. We would be going out every day.
Mm-hmm.
But most often you would be given a break, and Joe, and so and so and so. You're the ones that are going out on your vectors. I think I have a picture of what those vectors look like.
And what is the Bomber Barons? Can you talk about that?
That's our fifth bomb group. This is the fifth group, the latter group I was with. Oh, this was the one you'll like. This is Shortland Island. When you would go on a reconnaissance, there would be these from Guadalcanal over like this, but we were coming from 300 miles down here. Everyone wanted to have Shortland, because here were two islands, real short. And what we would do is we'd combine and we would buzz the islands, because we're looking for any naval pilots that have bailed out and might be there, or Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
So we would buzz along there. Now, the reason everybody got off to this side of the plane, if we're going this way to pass by to see, is because the girls would take off their lavas and wave to us as we go by. So everybody wanted that vector, because that was where we got the chance to see the girls. But that's why I had that one highlighted. Anyway. Now, these are the Japs attacking Guadalcanal. They'd come down low and they'd try to bomb. Mostly they came at night, though. This shows you again where Bougainville is, and Kahili. This is Munda. We invaded that one and took it. This is called the clip joint. That's where we got our hair cut. Oh, there's some beautiful sight. Now this is the Munda airfield where they just really bombed it to death. And this is how it is after the guys cleaned it up. Got to use it for our planes. Beautiful country down here. Here I am showing a picture flying by the girl on Shortland Islands. That's spoken to the anyway.
Who named the plane that you
Beg
were on?
pardon?
Who came up with the name?
Pilots.
Pilot.
The pilot chooses his flight.
So did you
see Bill Ivy? Here it is, right? No, this is Madam something. But the one I flew was originally named Bill Poison Ivy because his last name is Bill Ivy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I named it just Sweet Eloise because that's my mother's name is Eloise. But here's Sewers, and we'd buy from the Brits.
Did you come home with any other souvenirs other than the
Oh, I
machine
had
gun?
flags, and I had the money, and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And brought binoculars. I traded and got a pair of binoculars. And I didn't get any swords because the guys wanted $400 for them, and I wasn't about to buy one for that.
Good Lord.
Anyway, we'd have the wind, the front would come down over us, and here we are standing on the beach looking at the big waves come in, and the wind there. This Al Mobley, dear buddy of mine, he didn't come home alive, darn it. There's our movie theater here, right here. We sat out in the movie theater where we have a briefing about what our targets are going to be for tonight and the next day. Very relaxed. See the bud? Oh,
Yeah.
Gee,
Off in the rain.
you one four-wheel drive, you'd have had these things stuck. I keep looking for Colvin's grave. We were listening to this Christmas song.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy. He's the one that wrote the
Star Trek?
yeah. But we're listening to Bing Crosby sing White Christmas. Looking forward to Christmas. We all were. This is when we bombed there at Munda. The Coast Watcher told us where the Japanese were packing their supplies.
Mm-hmm.
And here, these are our bombs falling right here, if you look close. But we were coming along like this and dropping bombs on the Japanese.
Now, the smaller bombs, how many would you be able to hold in?
Oh, you could carry easily 12 100-pounders.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be in racks. There'd be double racks. There'd be bombs. They'd all be stacked like this, one on top of the other. You had two arches like that, and then you have a catwalk that you walk through the bomb door to get in the cockpit or to go. Some of them would go up in the nose, but we always got in and walked up this way. And I didn't realize it was that narrow until I was down here at the airport and got into B-17. I said, gee, buddy, that's narrow. But I don't remember having any problems going through the cockpit.
So the mission would determine what size.
This was the goal of all of us. And that was to have a rest leave in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
New Zealand had been in the war for 4 years, so their boys are all gone. And here we come in. Their money looked like coupons for laundries or something. We spent money just like that. We could spend one night what they earned in an entire month.
Mm-hmm.
And these girls fell in love with Americans. And they just fall. I met one lovely girl there, and she wrote me, hoping that I'd be able to come back again. There she is. And we were there for 1 week. And what I did is rented a car. That was fun, trying to drive on the wrong side of the road the way they do in New Zealand, because you're okay going, but so when you're making a turn from here going here, so you got to remember where you are. You're not going to be over here. You're going to be over here. Anyway, when we got ready to leave, we had this one crazy guy. We had two crews in the plane going to New Zealand. We were the first crew that flew down there. The other crew flew us home. So I was in the nose, in the bombardier's position, because I knew what was going to happen, because he said, I'm going to buzz this town like it's never been buzzed before. And we made a dive. Have you been in San Francisco?
Mm-hmm.
You swore Auckland is just a dead ringer.
Okay.
And for the main street is the main street that we were aiming for.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, sure, here it is, right here. There it is. We were coming in like this. This is the piers and the warehouse and that. But this is the main street right on up here. He was lifting the wings over the flagpole of the buildings, full speed. He went up, did 180 turn around. When we came back this way, people were out in the street, looking at it, shooting right on over. If we had lost a dangerous crash, we'd have killed hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Stupid. But we're stupid. There's kids. We wouldn't have done it, but that jackass did. He got court-martialed as soon as we got in Fiji when it landed. Found out there was a colonel in the Dilworth building, which is the one on this side here, which is the Army headquarters, U.S. Army. He read our tail number as we went by. And I wish I'd taken more pictures on this one. I think I was worried sick what's going to happen. But anyway, she wrote me back, sent me a newspaper clipping, which just says, bomber flies low over town. And it said that while some was complained about that, and the market there had a hard time hearing their quotations in the stock market as the noise of the plane. Mm-hmm. Our feelings are much like that of a member of our city who said, if it's necessary for our boys to fly low to win the war, I say let them win. That's our sentence. But he got a court-martial. He was fined $75 now. $75 isn't money right now, but in 1942, $75 is a lot of money. People could buy a lot of things with $75 in those days. But that's what we did for stupid to do. If we'd had a problem, if the engines stopped running, where would you set the plane down? We did. But we just.
Luckily, that didn't happen.
But the people were so gracious. So you'd stand on the corner waiting for the signal so you could go across the street. And in New Zealand, you could go kitty corner across the street this way here and that way, as well as in a box shape. They'd come up to you and say, won't you come to our place, please? We have some tea together. We'll have you for dinner. Would you like to come? They treated us like kings. I mean, these people were just royal. We'd come out of a building and make just go to the next door, and we're used to walking in the sidewalk. We'd be on the right side. Well, there we had to be on the left side. Otherwise, you bump right into them as they're walking along. It took a little while before we knew what to do. But some of the stories that we got out of New Zealand, they were gracious. I wrote a letter apologizing for the Americans' behavior. I was going along and by where the Marines were, and there was a car parked, and the guy there talking to two Marines, And they signaled me to come over because I was an officer. And what had happened, these guys had gotten drunk and puked in the back seat of the car. And he wanted them to pay for it. I said, oh, I'm so sorry. Here, I gave him some soap coupons. And the guy appreciated it very much. And then I told the Marines, I said, now listen, we're living up there where the real Marines are, the fighting Marines. They're our buddies. You jackasses aren't. And they were pretty well whacked. I don't think they knew what I said to them, but they were about to pay this guy for the best they paid. Had a lot of good memories there, but I wrote a letter to the editor, never got a return, and I thought I would. They said how much we appreciate their hospitality and apologize for some of the misbehavior that our drunks. I mean, we went to one place in a hotel where there's a dance hall, and these guys, 2, 3 drunks, and they took a bottle of booze and just across the floor. You know, they could have hit one of those girls' legs and cut them up, you know. Well, it's a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
I remember we all lifted our feet up. There's a bash and broke. But you get some jackasses that don't give us a good reputation. But the flyboys, they liked. They didn't have trouble with that.
Now, on any of your missions, did you ever take any direct hits or
Yeah,
any close calls?
Got coming in for landing. We got 2 bullets. This is an amazing thing. We got all that shooting at it. I mean, you could see all around below the blinking. Those are anti-aircraft shells exploding and coming up at you. You'd think we would have been knocked out of the sky. I don't know. We didn't. But when we were coming back from one mission, we'd lost one engine. So we were coming in long like this. When we landed and taxied over and parked our plane, the engineer, hey, come, look here, there's a couple bullet holes. We had Japs on the island, Guadalcanal, that had shot at us on our approach. They put one bullet hole in the number 3 in the cell, that's the round ring underneath the wing. There was a bullet hole there, and in the bomb bay door, another bullet hole. The rifle shots is what they were. That's the only thing I ever got, was those just 2 bullet holes. In fact, I saw our plane in Arizona, Kingman, Arizona. There's an air base there. And I stopped there flying a plane home. They let me do it 2 times, just to fly from Nebraska, fly here to Lockheed, and spend 3-4 days and then fly back home. That was a trip. The colonel said, I want you to learn long-range flying, to keep your skills for long-range flying. And so we'd fly from Nebraska down around here over the big old volcano, not a volcano, but where a meteor hit in Arizona there. He looking, gee, that's a big thing. But anyway, forget my train of thought. But I forgot what I was saying.
Yeah, about taking the direct hit.
Oh yeah, direct hit. No, that was the only thing. But you still find some bad weather in the United States is not much appreciated.
Yeah.
One thing we did too, we had to go out to Sacramento. That was one of our bases before they flew from there to the west, the B-24, B-29s. And when we were coming back, coming over the Rockies in Colorado, you get tremendous wind gusts like that. And we were flying at about, 10,000 feet, just below, have to wear oxygen. and we got in a downdraft on the west side of Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And you start going down, so you start pulling back. And you're still going down, you're still pulling back. And finally, you have to go ahead and get some power going again. But I didn't realize that tremendous draft. Just like this, and the clouds look different.
Mm-hmm.
They have a different smooth thing like that. But you can stall out trying to put the engines. And the same way when you're going this way, pushing you down, and you want to pull back up. I was glad I didn't have to fly in that area often because you had the weather that's miserable and lightning thunderstorms. You can have those.
Can't be fun to fly through those, huh?
Don't like those at all. They're dangerous. Well, I hope I haven't overly given you too much junk here.
Not at all. Not at all.
You helped me remember some of the I'm glad I composed this because I've got it all recorded in my life's history. I show it to my grandkids.
Yeah. No, I think
They
this
think
is a.
Grandpa is nice.
I think this is a great piece of history you have here.
When I finally got home, this gal here was my date gal in Nebraska. She was okay. In fact, we got engaged. And here she is here. We were going to get married, and her folks lived in Seattle, right near Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
And when they found out that I was a Mormon and they were a hard-shell Baptist, well, that cut it off. And she gave back the ring. I had to give my ring back to her. Feel kind of sad. I remember going back to the base in Nebraska, feeling sorry to myself. Gee, here I've tried to fly straight and level, Lord, and here I've got to turn around and give my gifts back, and I'm going to be the butt of squadron jokes. Shame now.
That's unfortunate.
Or says, well, he'll grow out of it. He's going to meet my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I compare with what here I am in a V-29. That's the V-29. We love that. But that was a strange plane. When they first made them, they had problems of takeoff. And your instructions were you pulled up 200 feet.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't continue your flight up. You continued to fly straight and level until the engines cooled down. And you'd look at the needles, and when they come down, then you can start your coming up.
Interesting.
I'm glad I flew the B-17. That was the best plane.
And were you awarded any medals or commendations?
Oh, yes, I received the Distinguished Flying Cross.
Mm-hmm.
I received the Air Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster.
Mm-hmm.
I received the Blue Ribbon, which was the Presidential Unit Citation. Those are the main directions. Then you have the ones that you flew in the Pacific and so forth. But life has been good to me. I had a wonderful life. There's a gal shooting my machine gun. This is a girl that was at SC. Here it is here too. We went up in the Hollywood Hills and we're shooting target practice.
Oh, fun.
Anyway, that's my discharge.
And what rank did you attain?
Captain.
Captain.
I was a captain. Had a big old write-up about you in the paper afterwards.
And after you came home, When did you get out of service? When?
I got out while the war was still on.
Okay.
And it was in July of 1945. We dropped the atomic bombs. That was quite through. This is my cousin, so I sent these pictures back to my buddies at the base that I was really having a good life.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got to fly in the plane. Here it is in the war. Here it was at the big air show up in Oshkosh air show, back in the cockpit again. And the war's over.
And what did you do after?
I went to dental school, USC dental school.
Okay.
Practiced dentistry. Retired now. Still healthy, still blessed with ability to get up and go to work tomorrow if I had to.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been blessed. I really have. I think the thing that makes you feel sad when you go to reunions and things like yesterday. There was some wonderful. We had the cream of the crop. To be a pilot in the Air Force, you had to be sharp.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard to be given that. This was the best group of fellows that you could assemble. The funds, and if you didn't pass the tests, you were washed out. We'd wash them out right and left in flight school.
Mm-hmm.
If they didn't do what they were supposed to do and do it right, they were. You're not going to be a pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you go and you make friends of these buddies, and when we go in combat, you become, like I said, when we got to San Francisco and got our decorations, and realized now we were all splitting up, that we had a different feeling towards our buddies. We were buddies, but now we became our fond buddies. And this Al Mobley, I showed you a picture of him. He flew off our wing. His plane was crock of crap. That's the way the planes were for us. We had junk planes because they weren't given the maintenance that the planes in England had. When things didn't work, it was hard to get them fixed. That's why we didn't have an autopilot. But Al Mobley, he was in my tent with me in the combat, so we became very close buddies. And when I went to Florida for refresher training, he and I were the only ones from the group who were sent down there, so we were meant to be there. His wife was with him. And one day he was in Nebraska at Omaha, and he was flying co-pilot to another guy in a B-24, no, a B-25. No, it's 26. It's the flying without visible means of support. The wings were just stubs on the side of it. We'd watch them take off while we're waiting to get our turn to go off. And watch them take off, we'd all go like this. Because they'd just get up out of the ground and then they would stay like that. They would stay like that, and they would stay like that. They were high enough not to be over they were over the palm trees. But pretty soon, eventually, they began to start climbing. When I was flying in Florida, over on Fort Myers, I had an air base of training these people and these things. They finally had to put more length on the wings. But it was one a day in somebody's bay. Forget the name of the town where the base was one a day on so such and such a day. They were losing the planes right and left. And he was taking off, and they lost an engine, and they hit telephone lines and tension lines, and he was killed. They crashed into a lake right there by the river. And I sorry that I couldn't go to his funeral. He's down in Texas, but the little airport in his town was so small a B-17 couldn't land there. It had to be, so I couldn't go to his funeral, but I wrote a beautiful letter to his wife. She was pregnant with their first child, and I got a letter from her. Then we got together again years later, and I wrote to her daughter, I want to tell you about your dad, and what it was like to be in the combat, and what it was like to fly an airplane, and our friendship. Al Mobley, he didn't get to have the joy that I've had. He had every right to it because he earned it. But there's a lot of guys like that, the best that the United States had. And that's what Al Mobley was, the best thing we had. He was a captain, too.
Yeah.
Good man. Oh, now you got me all wound up here.
I'm sorry. Well, I appreciate, no, something I've been asking a lot of people is if there's any advice that you have for today's generation, if there's anything that you could share, what that would be.
Our liberties have been bought by infantrymen, naval people. I feel sincerely concerned about the values and the standards of our youth today and what their worlds are, what's important to them. I like to think our boys were a whale of a lot better in our generation and in their generation here today. There are some that are good, sure, but I watch on TV and see attitudes and behaviors and some of the people protesting. I get upset. They're not worth it. For me, I'd get a good stiff butt kick, and they deserve every bit of it. But I'm glad my kids aren't that way.
Yeah.
Thank the goodness. They each have served missions in their church. Eagle Scouts, they're all 3 Eagle Scouts. But we reared them that way to have standards and values. There's a lot of divorces, there's a lot of broken homes, a lot of weakness. There's a lot of good people too, don't let me get you down, but sometimes I look at things on TV and I just, terrible, just sickening. And it is. When you look at the values of our world today compared to the values that we trusted, you should have seen the right after Pearl Harbor, the vast numbers of big, long lines wanting to sign up instantly now. It wasn't hard to get people to sign in. No. There was love for our land. Our land had been sunk in Pearl Harbor. There was war had been going on over in Europe, and we were worried about that. But when we got hit, there was a tremendous loyalty. People became instantaneously patriots. You'd get if you were like when I was in Nebraska, or rather in St. Louis, walking. They'd pull up in the car and say, "Can you need a ride, buddy? Would you like a ride?" We were walking to get to a bus stop or something like that. Mm-hmm. They wanted to take in the car. They saw you in uniform. I was sent. Hadn't been sent to flight training yet. I was still in Nebraska, rather in St. Louis. And they said those who had previous military training are immediately deleted. Well, I had gone to ROTC, 4 years of that, and military MTC twice up at San Luis Obispo. I was in charge. They sent us out to the airport in St. Louis as guards, and we would be on duty 4 hours, and 4 hours we were off duty. But we'd sleep on the ground in the hangars like that when we were needed. I remember the people, they'd see us with a rifle. But we were assembled of them. They were, and 2 B-17s came in and landed. I never realized that within a year I'd be flying in those things. But we were patriots. We were one. And as I said, the Marines thought we were buddies. They'd come down into our camp and talk to us, want to know if we would like some of their pokey bait, which was their souvenirs. But the respect, we were one. It was a great time. It was a great time when we came home, to get back home and get into the old school line again. I got into college. I got my degree as a dentist. But I would never have been able to pay for it if I hadn't had the government pay for it. Because we were just coming out of a depression. And that was serious. And we would have people come to the door begging for food in Los Angeles. There's the Carthay Center Theater there. That's a nice neighborhood. But they'd knock on your door. You can't turn them away. Dad would make them get some scrambled eggs and a couple of pieces of toast for them. Invite them in. Because we just couldn't see people going hungry, and they were doing that. People don't know what it was like in that big depression. That was terrible. We've never had anything like it since. I'm preaching, and I don't like to do that. You've got more stuff than I need.
Well, in conclusion, do you want to just talk about the honor flight experience a bit?
Yes, that was choice and unexpected. My son in Florida heard about this in-flight basis and said, "Dad, you ought to sign up for it." So he signed up for me. There was nothing available at the time. And so he called the fellow, I forget the name, I've got this all written down, but the head of the flight, Greg. He said, "My dad's done this and done that and got these medals and so forth." He laid it on thick. And he says, he'd sure like to go. If you get a cancellation, I'd like to go as his guardian. And very soon the phone rang and we were accepted. And I paid for his flight out here and flight back. He flew from Florida here the day before we left. And he was a jewel because he did everything for Dad. And he was sharp as a tack. He always saw to it that we got the front seat in the bus. It was a good seat in the airplane. And it just made the... let me show you my book.
Yeah.
Don't go away if I can remember where I put the darn thing. It's sitting too close.
That'll be the end.